Good morning, everyone. I am Martha Raddatz, and I am Chief Global Affairs Correspondent for ABC News. And in that role, over the last decade or so, I have covered the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I try to cover our returning veterans whenever I possibly can. And I don't deserve any applause. The man next to me is the one who deserves applause. Let me give you a few phrases. Shame on you, where are you? Arnold Fisher has said those things more than once. I think you are probably all familiar with Mr. Fisher. He is the honorary chairman of the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. 3 years ago, he opened the extraordinary National Intrepid Center for Excellence at Walter Reed Medical Center, which concentrates on traumatic brain injury, mental health issues for our veterans, and he is opening satellite offices as well. Mr. Fisher, those comments have been aimed at the federal government. Where are you? Yesterday, you bailed us out once again. I'm sure you've all followed.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, no one deserves a standing ovation more than you do, sir. You have dedicated your life to helping our veterans. And I am just going to say a personal thing here very quickly, which is I'm also involved in trying to help the wounded through the Bob Woodruff Foundation. Year after year, I see the same wounded veterans with traumatic brain injury, with post-traumatic stress. Their families who take care of them are still taking care of them 10 years after I first met them. These young spouses are now middle-aged spouses. These mothers who now have their young sons who are babies again and living at home take care of them over and over. Yesterday, Mr. Fisher bailed us out because the federal government was not paying death benefits to our troops who died since the government shut down. $100,000 that should go immediately to those troops' families to help them come back here, to have hotels to stay at. They need to grieve. They have so much on their minds, and they had to think about not having the money to do that. Mr. Fisher, tell us how this came about and how mad you are. I know you are.
I'll try and be as calm as I can, but
Oh no, let it go.
I'll just give you an instance that happened 2 days after the shutdown. I got a phone call from a representative who asked me, after giving me 10 minutes of how great the Fisher family is and all of that, and I turned around and said, "What do you want?"
There's a man who knows Washington.
And she said, I didn't want to say the gender. But they said to me, they're having a little cocktail party for me tomorrow night for a fundraiser to get me reelected. Well, you know the story about slowly Kokomoko changed? Well, that was me. I gave her 20 minutes that I am surprised she stayed on the phone. You close this government down and you ask me to give you money to get you reelected? I mean, are you kidding me? Is this a joke? I said, you know where I'm going tomorrow? Tomorrow I'm going to Camp Lejeune and I'm going to open what we call Intrepid Spirit. That's for the Marines that have come back with TBI and PTS. We build these satellites at the bases where the troops leave to Afghanistan and they come back to that base. And when they have problems, the local hospitals give them pills. That calms them down a little bit, but does not change their problem. I've seen them, I've talked to them, and when you talk to them, a lot of them will talk over your head. They look normal, but they are not. At the center in Bethesda, we put in $26 million worth of equipment. I didn't pay for it. The government didn't give me one penny. That was done by you, by the American people. 600,000 contributors to build this center. 2 years before, kids were coming home without arms and legs after giving their arms and legs. The Department of Defense had put away, I think, $10 or $12 million to build a rehab center at Walter Reed. 3 years went by, they hadn't built that. So we went to the Army Surgeon General and said, where should we build it? We'll build it. Near the Brooke Army Medical Center. It's a 4-story, finest physical rehab center in the world. And I'm sorry to say it's full, because my ultimate goal is to build these things and make garages out of them later so that nobody needs to use them. We ask these young people, any of the veterans here who are not 18 and 20, excuse me, but I'm 80 years old, everybody is a kid. So, so when I say these kids raise their right hand, and they know they're not going to a motor pool in Oklahoma City, they know they're going to Afghanistan. And they get beaten up pretty good over there, whether it's a wound, whether it's a loss of an arm, or whether it's TBI or PTS. There are a lot of organizations that do things for them. They build houses for them, they get jobs for them. Can't do all that until you fix this. There's 300 to 600,000 young men and women coming back with this malady. And what gets me angry, when we opened the center at Bethesda, there was not, it's 20 minutes from the Capitol. Not one senator, not one representative, nobody from the cabinet came to see this opening. That's when I said, where are you? And to this day I say, where are you? This thing about shutting the government down and asking the head doctor of these facilities to go on furlough, and that we can't take all of the kids that need work. We can only do 80% of them, and 20% of the facility is basically closed. That's not my America. This business of being a Democrat or being a Republican does not automatically make you an American. In order to be an American, you vote America. What's best for America, not what's best for the Democrats and not what's best for the Republican, but what's best for this country. We've lost that, and that has got to get back. Because if it doesn't get back, we're going to lose this country. This is not the same country that I was born in. And I'll be very honest with you, I don't like it. And I'm not a speaker. I don't speak very much, and I don't have a command of the English language. But when I get angry at something like this, I don't care. I'm 80 years old, you can't do anything to me.
Mr. Fisher, I want you to tell us how you stepping in for the death benefits came about. Did someone come to you? I know you saw stories about what was happening. This is pretty much the easiest interview I've ever done, by the way. Just let him go.
Well, to begin with, it was my son who runs Fisher House. I am Honorary Chairman of Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, and he runs Fisher House. We spoke a couple of days ago, and he didn't fall far from the tree. He's a little calmer than I am, but he got very angry too. And he said, "Gotta do something about it." And immediately said, "We'll pay the money. We'll give the $500,000. It's the rawest thing this country has ever done, is to let these families come to Andrews Air Force Base on their own, with their own money. My son Kenny built the Fisher House at Dover Air Force Base, not basically for people to stay, it's for people to come and collect those that have come back from Iraq and Afghanistan. He's built a chapel there, and he's built a space for the parents to grieve when they see the coffins. I remember seeing many years ago of President Reagan and Nancy at 4 o'clock in the morning in the rain, standing with an umbrella, watching the coffins come back. Mr. President, you ought to take a look at that. Harry Truman said, "The buck stops here." Well, Mr. President, the buck stops with you. And Mr. Senator and Mr. House of Representatives, the buck stops with you. Stop the nonsense. Get into a room and get it straightened out. And never, I don't care what the excuses, take it out on the military. They're the ones that are giving up their arms and their legs and their minds, and you're going to punish them? Again, not my America.
So, Mr. Fisher, why don't you go in the room with them? I think they might have a chance of working something out. I want you to talk a little bit about the families you have met and the burden, and I think most of the people in this room understand the burden that those left behind bear, or those who are helping their family members get better.
The two stories I can tell you is that when we built the Fisher House at Landstuhl in Germany, we opened it, and I came there, and there was a father and his son. And they were in another room, and someone said to me, "Would you go in? They would like to speak to you privately." And I walked in the room, and the husband said, "We just lost our wife yesterday due to cancer, and we wanted to stay another day to say thank you for letting us stay here." And the second story is, my wife is the ambassador. My wife visits, we have 62 Fisher houses now. She visits 30 each year, from Landstuhl to Hawaii. And why does she visit them? Because the families that stay in these houses need to say to someone with the name of Fisher, "Thank you." They need to say it, not that we have to go there and pat ourselves on the back. They want us there. They want to say thank you. I went to Iraq and I went to Afghanistan, and because I didn't want to sit in an office on a 42nd floor and let somebody say, well, he doesn't know what's going on over there. So I went with General Cody. And I saw these young soldiers and Marines. I never met a finer bunch of people in my life. Dedicated, knew while they were there. And to see what you've seen and watch them come home and then like pushed aside. You're not important right now. We got other little matters to take care of. No, you don't. I don't care, you don't do a thing. You take care of them because they took care of you. It's why I get so angry, because they don't show up. They don't seem to feel the pain that the families do. They are legislatures. And you can go just so far with them, but you got to have a little heart. You got a little heart for these young people who raise their right hand and volunteer for their country. And this is no easy war. Not that any war is easy, but this one isn't. The explosions from the IED are greater than the explosions in Korea, in Second World War. They're so powerful that they slam against the side of the head and move the brain. And then things happen. Some worse, some not so bad. When you see them and when you meet them, if it doesn't do something to you, then I'm afraid you don't have a heart. And so I'm angry at the president. I said it. I'm angry at Congress, both sides. And until they do something, I'll remain angry.
Mr. Fisher.
That one other thing, when that representative called me, and I said, you better stop being a Democrat, and you better stop being a Republican. You better start being American. Maybe you shouldn't have more than one term or 2 terms. Maybe then you wouldn't worry about what you're going to do for your party, both parties. I'm not talking about one party against another. But maybe you got enough. Maybe if you stay there just for 4 years or just for 6 years, maybe the only point you would try and get across is to help this country, not worry about when I'm going to get reelected and how I'm going to get reelected and what I have to say on this party or to stay on that party. Maybe just talk about what's good for America. What do we need? How can I do something for this country? Not, well, I gotta vote this way or I gotta vote that way because that's what I am.
Mr. Fisher, I just want in these last few minutes, you have been putting out this message for years. Where are you? Shame on you. So tell me what you think Americans can do outside of the government shutdown, outside of what's happening right now, to get more involved in helping our veterans.
Well, personally, I think you ought to, if you're angry like me, I think you ought to call your representative and your senator and you ought to tell them you're angry. You ought to tell them I'm not going to give you any money. I don't care whether you get elected or not until you stop voting the proper way, until you help this country. Not help your party, but help this country. I don't know of another way for us to do that, but to let our voices be heard by the legislatures and let the president know. As I said, the buck stops with him. He has got to stand up and he has got to say what's happened in the last week or so. This is wrong, fix it. I don't need to go to lawyers, I don't need anything. I'm the President of the United States, fix it. It's simple. You don't need to go through an act of Congress to fix this thing. That's why I'm really, really mad.
Well, Mr. Fisher, I hope someone listens to you, and I do wish you could be right in the middle of those meetings to get this solved. But again, thank you. We all thank you so enormously for what you have done and continue to do for our veterans. Thank you, everyone.